European jazz musicians have slightly different viewpoints than the American born and bred jazz musician. Their tradition is considerably different, and so with that thought in mind, let's talk with Bobby Jaspar. Bobby, it comes to mind that since your background is considerably different from the American, you might give us an idea of what the contrast is.
It's a very big question altogether. Uh, I would say that most of the European musicians try try first to play like American musicians. There's only a few really great originals, European jazz musicians. I think. Uh, I think immediately about Django Reinhardt when I tell you that.
In
Uh,
fact, he seems to have been more or less the great guide, leader, and inspiration behind the jazz guitar in the
yes,
United
it is.
States.
Yes, yeah, even in the United States too. Yes, that's true.
May I ask you what you think are some of the contrasts? Do you think that the European musician is purely imitative in all of his ideas?
No, I wouldn't say so. But his background being different, I think sometimes American musicians don't appreciate European jazz musicians uh, as well as they would American musicians. Uh, I think that the main difference is in the bluesy background. Usually, there is uh, there is a kind of an idiom in the States which is mainly based on church music. I think has influenced most of the jazz musicians, and in Europe they don't have that influence so strongly in their music.
What is the
They,
strong influence in European jazz?
there is well, it's a combination of all kinds of backgrounds. If you, for instance, do you know piano player Martial Solal?
Yes, I do. He
He's a
originally from
very
Algeria.
yes, a very good jazz player. He doesn't have so much of a blues feeling in his playing because he doesn't have a blues tradition in his past.
He's
I
not. He
mean,
doesn't have a New
it didn't.
Orleans
It
tradition or
no,
a Chicago
he never
tradition.
went to a church, and you would more feel something like Debussy, being a main influence in him more than the blues, for
How about
instance.
in your instance? Your instrument is the flute and
Yes.
the saxophone. Who are some of your influences other
Oh,
than the blues?
I have been influenced by many people. First, by Don Byas, who was overseas for just right after the war. Before the war ended, we were playing Dixieland music. After that, we started to hear more modern music when the troops came over. Then some great American musician came over, like Don Byas. He was a main influence for me. After that, I was very much influenced by Stan Getz, which I thought was closer to my background too. Then when I came over to the States, I went back to Don Byas,
Well, these
to my
sidelights,
old first love.
Don, who swings so so
Very,
much in good taste,
yeah, very
with a
intensely
great deal
too.
of drive
Yes,
and tone.
yes, very much dry. That's true.
That seems to reflect in your style too, Bobby Jaspar, and these are certainly stimulating sidelights on the contrast between the European musician who plays jazz and the
Mm.
American. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Conversations on Jazz. Let's talk with Bobby Jaspar, an artist and craftsman of the flute and the saxophone. His background is Liège, Belgium, or Liège, Belgium. And his background includes both classical and the elements of jazz. Together they're combined. And what do they mean? Let's find out right now. Bobby Jaspar, you played for a considerable time with Django Reinhardt around Paris, didn't
Yes,
you?
I played for about not too long, a month, but anyway, I lived around him and listened to his music for a very long time.
It would seem to me that Django Reinhardt is the one outstanding figure in European jazz who's been an influence on Americans,
Yes,
particularly
that's
Charlie
true.
Christian
Yes,
and a number of others.
yes.
What was his personality as far as, you know, a musician you associate and play with?
He was a very attractive, very intense person. uh, can I say romantic in one sense, but you would just have to look at him playing to realize he had a just looking at him was very impressive. He never looked at his guitar. He was looking uh, toward the ceiling, and his whole attitude was surrounded by a kind of a mystery too. He dressed a pretty strange way sometimes with very big hats. He was sometimes very unreliable, difficult to find. When for a concert everybody was looking for him, then you would find him in a square reading a newspaper. He forgot completely about the concert. Or he loved to travel around, and when
This must have been the soul of the gypsy.
I think so, sure. He had a trailer, and a car, and he used to disappear from, and nobody heard about him for 2 or 3 months. Then he was back and playing again.
At the time that you knew him, he had just began playing the electric guitar, isn't that right?
Yes, that's
He had
true.
switched from the plectrum.
No, well, he still kept the same little guitar he used to play on, a little Selmer guitar, with
Mm-hmm.
a very little amplifier that he used to put full power, very powerful little amplifier, and it didn't sound n- either like the normal the normal guitar or the electric guitar. It sounded something completely different.
Was
Somewhat,
this something
somewhat.
do you think that Django wanted to attain as far as the sound of his instrument was concerned, or was it just an accident?
I don't know. He didn't agree with the electric guitar completely. He wanted to keep some of the normal non-electric guitar sound.
That very natural resonance,
Yes,
such
that's
as you
true.
find in the
Yes.
playing of Segovia.
Yes, yeah. He wanted to keep the, let's
Did
say, Spanish
Django
guitar sound.
talk with you about music?
Yes, he did. We used
What
to
did you
go
talk
to.
about?
Well, I asked him about his travel to the United States when he came and played with Duke Ellington.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I couldn't tell you exactly what he told me, but it was he had a very particular way of talking by images and
Mm-hmm.
pictures. That was very colorful, but he would talk by small little phrases, sometimes without any kind of tied together, but the result was that you would get a picture of what he had been living through just by those little impact phrases.
Well, that's certainly an interesting picture of his conversation. Of this trip that he made with Duke Ellington back in 1946, he made the tour of the United States, which included Minneapolis, Minnesota, among the
Yeah.
cities on the
Oh,
tour.
I didn't know.
And I was wondering what his impressions were of America. Did he express them to you,
Yes,
or American
yes.
musicians, or even Duke Ellington?
No, mainly about the country. He was very impressed by the greatness, the immensity of certain places he had been. I suppose he went to Texas too, or places like
And
I
there
don't know.
the
I don't remember.
spaces would certainly be
But
impressive.
he was very impressed by space, mainly, and he he tried to explain to me that certain of the movies that we used to see and that we didn't believe it was true, that he had seen that it was true. It was exactly what it was. Very big, very great, like a picture of infinity. That was his his uh, his expression of the country. I remember. Mm.
What impressed you about Django Reinhardt's musicianship?
Well, everything. He had everything a musician would want to have. He
How
had
about technique?
technique, tremendous technique, and with 2 fingers always.
Because of that
Because
disability.
yes,
Hmm.
and he could play chords with the 2 other fingers, but they were tied together and bent in a
As a
certain way.
result of a burn
Yes,
on the
yes,
scar
yes.
tissue.
He had a very great technique. Could play very fast. In fact, he taught me to play fast. I never played as fast as with him before. He forced me to play fast. I thought I would die in the right bandstand.
For lack of breath.
Yes. Then very powerful, of course, and very, very lyrical, and
Always
wonderful
that feeling
inspiration.
for the lyric
Yes,
and the melodic line.
yes, that's it. Yeah, combined together very.
Is there
Mm.
anything else in playing with Django Reinhardt that stands out vividly in your mind, Bobby?
Well, he kept talking about Bela Bartok, and he kept telling us that we jazz musicians were just a little bit of music, that we should always listen to great classical composers, and he was more impressed by classical composers than by anything else.
Which certainly,
Bartok and Stravinsky were his two favorite musicians.
which showed that Django Reinhardt was perhaps the vanguard of the modern jazz musician of
Yeah,
today.
probably, yes, yeah.
Well, this
So,
certainly is a most personal documentary on the sidelights and the
mhm.
personality of Django Reinhardt. Bobby
Mhm.
Jaspar, thank you ever so much.
All right, thank you, Leigh.